This, there we go. So while we were doing research for this year's House Walk, we realized that this is the 10th year that previously the Sycamore History Museum and now the DeKalb County History Center has been working on the House Walk that is part of Pumpkin Fest. And the Sycamore Library used to do it before we took over. And we really have put a lot of time and resources into doing research and not just talking about the architecture of the home, but the historical significance. Last year, we like Audrey was explaining, we had they weren't able to have their Christmas displays, their holiday displays. We also couldn't have the House Walk like we had previously had it. This year, we also had to make the difficult decision of having it online. We planned this event 6 months in advance, and 6 months ago, we had no idea what we would be able to offer. So we are excited about this year's options. We have 5 homes in Sycamore, 5 homes in DeKalb, and another 5 homes throughout the county. So we're going to have a tag team here. So I'm going to step aside. So we have Steve Biglin, a very knowledgeable DeKalb County historian, and we have Jane Higgins, who is also part of the research team with Teresa Jacobson, who is also on this call. So they are going to go through this PowerPoint here, and then we'll have time at the end if anyone has any questions. I'll also monitor the chat box if you want to put any questions in there, but I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and let you guys get started here. Okay, and then let me do one more. Okay.
Okay, just enter the.
It's right there.
Just the arrows.
Yep.
Are they seeing me too?
Yep, they can
Okay.
see you. Yep.
All right, and we're just page down.
Yep.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jane Higgins. I've been chairing this committee for 10 years, and I was previously on the library committee as well. So I've been doing this event for about 25 years or so. Steve's been doing research in the county much longer than that, and Teresa's been with us. She can wave her hand too, but for a long time. So we are just really excited about this. We do want to make sure everybody knows this is a virtual tour. You will pick it up online, buy tickets through our website, but you will get amazing information. We have history, we have architecture, we have the people that were involved with these homes, and wonderful pictures. The Joyner History Room and the people there, and Teresa and have done a wonderful job finding us some wonderful pictures of these properties. So we're going to give you a current picture of the property. Then Steve's going to give you a little synopsis, which you'll also see on your screen. And then I'm going to show you some of the pictures that we've collected about the property. So we're going to run through this as quickly as we can, but there's a lot of information. So hold with us here. We picked these homes because we've been doing this a long time. It's our 10th year, and we just decided these are some of our favorite homes. So these are the committee's favorite homes this year. We deliberately didn't go down Salmonock Street in Sycamore this year because we did that last year. We had lots on Salmonock last year. So though we have some favorite homes there, if you notice there's no Salmonock here, that's why we have covered it. And, perhaps you can catch that with us some other time.
I've suggested too that if we have to do a virtual tour again next year, which hopefully we won't, that we should do more out in the county.
Yeah, we are the DeKalb County History Center, so we did include this year for the first time some DeKalb locations. Since we're virtual, we're DeKalb locations. Nobody has to drive to all of these locations. You don't have to go there. You can just visit with us online and take the tour yourself. It'll be in a really beautiful brochure sort of format, so you can download it. You can do the tour, driving tour if you want, but we're not going in any of the homes. Sorry about that. So let me get started. So our Sycamore locations. We have 5 locations in Sycamore, one on North California, one on Grant Street, one on South California, one on Charles Street, and one on South Main. The first 4 we have done in previous house walks in person, But 612 South Main, we haven't. So this was a new one for us and we really enjoyed researching that
But
property
it has been on other house walks over the years.
a while back. Yeah. Okay. So let us begin with 129 North California, the Murphy House. You need to move into the camera.
Murphy House was built in 1908 for John Murphy, who was a partner with David Syme of 420 Salmonock Street in the grain business. His daughter Nellie Murphy, who never married, lived in the home for about 70 years. She worked originally at what historically was the Pierce Trust and Savings Bank, later for the National Bank and Trust Company, which is now First Midwest Bank. The house includes 18 specialized windows, stained glass, beveled glass, leaded glass. They're phenomenal pieces of glass that survived for 112, 113 years. The stained glass windows are, and there are even stained glass windows in closets and bathrooms in the house. And it's the only one in Sycamore that I'm familiar with that is the case. Though there's at least one house in DeKalb that has windows in closets.
Here are a few pictures of some of it. We have a wonderful picture of the house being built in the bottom left
And
hand.
the owners do retain the original plans. We saw them several years ago when we first met with them. They are very, very fragile.
You also see here a couple of examples of the leaded glass and it's a textured glass and a stained glass window that's actually in a closet. The swan is in the closet. On the bottom right, you have a pocket door. There's wonderful woodworking throughout the home as well. This is just a beautiful home. And if I gotta say, this is one I picked personally. This is my favorite home in Sycamore and has been for a long time. On the top right is a picture of Nellie Murphy as a child with her mother. Moving on, we go to Grant Street. This is 343 Grant Street. It stands all by itself proudly on Grant Street and is quite striking if you drive down Grant Street right across from the high-rise apartments.
It was built by Patrick Welch in 1896 and originally was located at 530 West State Street, having to be moved to its present location in 1991 when the Baptist Church built on West State Street. The first owner, David Middleton, was instrumental in promoting the first golf course in Sycamore. His striking double entryways and many large windows for air circulation make the home very striking in appearance. It was for a long time cut up into apartments, and there was at one time a beauty parlor on the first floor. I was in it back in the days when that beauty parlor was there.
Yep, I had my hair cut there too as well. So,
Thanks. That was Teresa.
that was me.
And if you go through this house, you'll see that the plugins and electric outlets for the beauty parlor are still existent in the floor of the house. They never took them out, and there's no real reason to.
It
They
was
just
used as a beauty parlor for I don't know how long.
long time. It is, if you go through this house, though, it is a very airy feel to this house. So you can just see summer evenings where you would lay upstairs in the bedrooms and have a cool breeze on all sides. So it's really quite beautiful. Also has a lot of beautiful glass. We see a glass window, a stained glass window. The entryway is surrounded by leaded glass and stained glass. So there's a picture there of just the entryway. The woodwork is beautiful as well. Very light wood in this house, but lots of it in the stairway. That's the fireplace that's original to the home, and then one of the original light fixtures there too. Moving on to one of the oldest homes in town. This is 423 South California. You might know this as the Daniel Dustin House. Dustin was a Civil War general, and I'll turn it over to Steve here. You know a little about Dustin.
Daniel Dustin lived in the house for quite a long time. He originally had it built in 1859, and he was a general in the Civil War, one of Sycamore's more prominent Civil War veterans. He also, though, was a practicing physician. He served as county clerk, circuit clerk, and treasurer of DeKalb County. The house has many lovely porches, all of which were beautifully restored by previous owners well over 30 years ago. The dining room has original intricate inlaid flooring dating from 1859, which it's amazing it survived as long as it has and as beautifully as it has. For a long time, the house was neglected and is now very beautifully restored. Years ago, when the Sycamore Historic District Committee was first doing work around the area that became the historic district, I had a picture that I took of it and didn't realize that the original front door from 1859 was still intact on the house at that time.
Not anymore.
And it subsequently was unfortunately removed and trashed.
This house also, we've been in the basement, and in the basement, you can see the original brick chimney. It's not being used as a chimney anymore, but it's still quite a good part of the support of the house. So it's still there. Very interesting property here because you can really see how it's been remodeled over the years. The back servant stairs in this house are as steep and narrow as they ever came. And so when we showed it, we had to rope them off so nobody fell down them. So you see the front staircase of the historical marker for General Dustin. That's the dining room floor we were talking about there. And then, you know, these are restored bits, the room divider and the fireplace mantle are restored and not original to the house, but still quite beautiful. And they all kind of all go together.
Yeah, the stairwell is not the original either, I don't think.
No, it's not. It had to be rebuilt because it had been trashed. And again, this had been rented out. It had been owned by families who didn't take care of it and all sorts of things. So this house got to be in pretty rough shape before it got recovered, but it had a couple of very good owners since then that have really fixed it up, and it's just quite beautiful. So, and very historic.
And for a house that's over 160 years old.
Yeah, I wouldn't be in that good a shape, so. Okay, and then we move, and this may be Teresa's favorite house. This
Very
is,
nice.
252 Charles Street. And this is the original home of Bert Nelson. Tell us a little bit about Bert.
Bert Nelson was probably, without a doubt, Sycamore's most prolific builder. He's known to have constructed the Anaconda Wire and Turner Brass Company plants here in Sycamore, the Wally Thorough House on South Main Street, the First Midwest Bank Building, which originally was National Bank and Trust Company, as well as the three Fargo buildings, the Fargo Theater, which is now the State Theater, the Fargo Hotel, as well as the Fargo Garage, which unfortunately was torn down a few years ago for redevelopment. The house
Steve, can
contains
I ask
many
you-
very beautiful specialized brick elements in the exterior design.
Teresa's got something to say.
Yeah,
Teresa.
Steve, I was just gonna ask, do we know if Bert Nelson built the Fargo Theater in DeKalb as well, or no?
I don't know that.
What?
You
don't know?
The Fargo Theater in DeKalb.
Because they were built around the same
Designed
time, weren't
Fargo
they?
Theater in DeKalb. Mr. Fargo was so pleased with the work that Nelson did for him on the three Sycamore building projects that he hired him to do the DeKalb Fargo Theater between 6th and 7th Streets on East Lincoln Highway.
Yeah, you can see his touches in a lot of residences around around town too. If you see houses, there are several houses that look like this one. If you see those are probably Bert Nelson. Bert also was instrumental in getting many of the streets of Sycamore paved and around the county as well.
And as well known as he was over the years, not only in Sycamore, there has never been a good quality photograph of him found.
Yeah, we're still waiting on that.
The
from
Holy
him.
Grail.
It is. All right. There are a lot of features in the house that are existent from the beginning. There's a little phone niche where they had one of the first phones in Sycamore, and there's a little niche where it's sat by the front door. As you'll see in these pictures, there's a basket weave sort of linoleum floor in the bathroom upstairs, as well as textured glass. There's a laundry chute, the top right corner there. The house is supported by a steel pillar in the middle of the basement that supports the house. This house is not going anywhere soon.
It's 2 full floors of living space plus a usable attic and basement, and the basement was finished off as usable space many years ago.
It, last time we were in it, it had a spa down there as well, so. And then as you see, the backyard is quite beautiful and it does have an in-ground pool.
And a
And so,
pool house to go along with the pool.
yeah, the
Yep.
picture there is the pool house, so.
And it's new owners. There's new owners since the last time we had the house on the walk as well. And they've made some landscaping changes to the property.
So there are gonna be some updates to the property, but it's still quite a beautiful house. A lot of house,
And it has another very good owner.
Right.
yes, it does, a owner that will take very good care of it, so. All right, and then we move to the property at 612 South Main Street, and Steve knows a bit about this one.
This house was built approximately in 1846 for Elsie Young, who had settled in DeKalb County in 1839, making Sycamore his home. It is generally believed to be the second oldest house anywhere in Sycamore. The only house older than it is at 230 South Main Street, the Jess Kellogg House of 1842. Young served as not only county clerk, but also county sheriff and a county commissioner. He was responsible for laying out the present courthouse square and getting the first courthouse on that property constructed around 1850. He also is known to have designed the original 9-hole golf course that Sycamore had. The house was once owned by Sherritt Chase of the DeKalb Ad, who recently passed away at the age of 103. I had the personal pleasure to meet Mr. Chase the last time that he was visiting in the DeKalb Sycamore area. I think he was 101 at that time, if I remember correctly. He once entertained Eleanor Roosevelt at 612 South Main Street, and is probably better known for having also been well acquainted with her husband, Franklin Roosevelt, the President of the United States, because of the fact that Mr. Chase was involved in the development of the Manhattan Project, the creation of the atomic bomb in the early 1940s. The house has extremely beautiful grounds and very large, well landscaped grounds.
Yeah,
And there is an in-ground swimming pool on the property, which until a week ago, for that matter, for over 40 years, I never knew existed.
And it's for sale.
And
yeah,
it has been for
Yeah,
sale.
this
I
one-
think
Yes.
the current asking price, if I remember correctly, is $325,000.
it's a steal. Somebody out there needs to snap this up.
It's always been very well cared for,
It
considering
is.
its extreme age.
It is well cared for and preserved inside. You can see the top left corner there. That's a picture, a shot of the entryway. But the whole house is just immaculately done inside and out. The grounds are just quite striking. And the pool
There are
is well
trees
cared
on the
for.
property that are probably as old as the house itself and maybe older.
The gentleman on the top right is Sherritt Chase, quite an important man. He went from Sycamore, he did go to Iowa State University, who was really instrumental in many of the hybrid corn varieties that came out.
And when he was involved with the Manhattan Project, he was only in his early 20s. He was very, very young.
Quite brilliant. Anyway, we've had some pretty good sycamorons in this town, so. Anyway, we're gonna move now to DeKalb. So our properties in DeKalb are the Mayo Mansion on West Lincoln Highway, 2 on College Avenue that are quite amazing, and 2 on Augusta Avenue. And Steve is very well acquainted. If anybody knows this neighborhood, it's Steve. By the way, the 2 on College and the 2 on Augusta will be on our walking tour this coming Sunday at 1 o'clock. So this and many other properties along College and Augusta will be on the walking tour. So come join us then. So, oops. That is the Mayo Mansion on 105 West Lincoln, now
Actually,
owned
it
by,
has two addresses.
Oh.
105 West Lincoln is where Armor Technologies is headquartered off the parking lot on the Lincoln Highway side of the building. The actual address of the house, though, was historically 105 North First Street.
okay, so it's 105 north or west. You can go either way.
Pick your favorite street.
Pick a street. This one, you drive by and it is certainly striking, so.
This house stands on what was historically the original site of town founder Russell Huntley's log cabin, Huntley being the first permanent settler in DeKalb in 1837. His double log cabin stood on that corner until 1877, when he left DeKalb and the property changed hands. The mansion itself was built in 1897 for Dr. Edward Mayo and his wife, who was one of Isaac Elwood's daughters, Harriet Elwood. Dr. Mayo was about 18 years older than his wife, and actually she was his third wife. And there are stories I could tell you about his two previous wives.
A little bit of a scandal there. We'll have
Quite
some
a
of
bit
that.
of a scandal.
We'll have a bit of that information in the, we'll just tease that for the actual, you'll have to sign up for the actual house walk. to
In
get the information.
1922, the DeKalb Elks Lodge bought the building for $75,000 from Mrs. Mayo when she chose to move to California. She came back to DeKalb within 2 years' time, tried unsuccessfully to buy back the old house from the Elks, and still owned the property immediately north where 115 North First Street now stands. She spent $75,000, according to oral tradition, building that house, which there was a large grove of trees on that property, I'm told, before the house was constructed there. And the wood from the trees was used for the paneling, woodwork, and staircase inside 115 North First Street. But 105 was the DeKalb Elks Club from 1922 until 1994. And since that time, it has been used for business purposes. While it is red sandstone, the red sandstone covers brick, which can only be seen in certain areas of the basement of the house. The brick addition to the house was done by the Elks Lodge in apparently the late 1930s, early 1940s. That addition, unfortunately, in the early 1980s, when the Elks tried to get the mansion listed on the National Register of Historic Places, disqualified it because they felt it compromised the architectural integrity of the original structure, even though the brick was a color and shade that matched the original sandstone.
Yeah, I don't think most people who drive by it even kind of know that that's not original, but make your judgment. The top left is a much older picture.
The house was first illustrated or first photographed for inclusion in the 1899 DeKalb Chronicle Illustrated Souvenir Edition. And as you can see in that upper left-hand photo, it had wooden columns that were subsequently replaced with sandstone pillars and a wooden balustrade at the base of the porch.
And then the one on the bottom right corner, that is a photograph from when it was the Elks Club. So pretty well-known
The
piece of
building still
property.
retains 3 fireplaces, not all of which were original to the house.
Yeah, you see the pictures differ a little bit in the fireplaces there. So, the other one added on in the front there. All right, we're going to move on to 335 College Avenue. I think one of the most beautiful homes anywhere, maybe a little bit elaborate for some people's taste, but it's quite
Outside of
beautiful.
Elwood House, which is in a class by itself, 335 College has always been my favorite house from the 1800s in DeKalb.
So we said this was our favorite houses tour, so here we go.
It was built originally for John Lewis, who was a son-in-law of Isaac Elwood. At the time that he married Isaac's daughter Mary in 1884, he owned a small grocery store in downtown DeKalb. But in 1892, he bought controlling interest in a small bank, the DeKalb National Bank, which later in 1892 He paid to have the building that still stands at Second and Lincoln Highway, the old First National Bank building, constructed to house DeKalb National Bank. And that building, as it was originally built, was red brick and 2 stories high with bay windows on the second floor. At the southeast corner of the building off the back parking lot, you can still see traces of the original brick under the later limestone facade. James Lewis, the son of John Lewis, was DeKalb's mayor from 1921 to 1923. Paul A. Nearing, noted wire manufacturer and banker, purchased the house around 1927, supposedly, according to oral tradition, for just $25,000.
Can you
And again,
imagine?
according to oral tradition, the house cost $100,000 to build. It was designed by Chicago architect Oscar L. McMurray in classical revival style. And the plans for the building still exist. I first saw them myself in 1985. They're very carefully laid flat in a built-in sideboard drawer in the dining room of the house, or at least that's where they were in 1985 when I first saw them. It's built of beautiful cream-colored brick with what I'm told is cast concrete ornamentation. Cast concrete was a very popular early 20th century building material. And if you're at all acquainted with the Baha'i Temple up in Wilmette, Illinois, that building, I believe, dates from about 1908 or 1910 and is cast concrete.
I'm not so familiar with the building techniques, so I'll take Steve's word for that. But as you can see from a historic picture, not a lot has changed on this house.
The only exterior change to speak of is the 1-story sunroom on the east side of the house facing the big side yard. That was done in 1937.
As you-
Otherwise, it's exactly the same as it was built 1900 to 1901.
This is one that if you drive by on the street, you're gonna wanna stop. So you gotta, again, come on.
And if you
our-
drive by the house at night, be sure to drive down Park Avenue going north past the house, because there's a beautiful stained glass window along the landing between first and second floors that you can only see and appreciate when it's lit up at night, and it isn't always lit up.
Worth a shot. Okay, and then we're gonna move to the NIU president's house, or it was, at 411 College Avenue. Again, a very striking house.
This house was built for Dr. John Williston Cook, who was the first president of Northern Illinois State Normal School, which became NIU in the 1950s. Cook served as president from 1899 to 1919, longer than any of his subsequent successors. Isaac Elwood of barbed wire fame is said to have paid for the construction of the house as part of his agreement to get Cook to come to DeKalb from Illinois State Normal School in Bloomington Normal, where he had been president since 1891. Supposedly, again, depending on what source you refer to, the house cost somewhere between $10,000 and $75,000 to build. During the 20 years that Cook lived there, he never paid rent for the house. It was considered his home. His successor took over the ownership of the house after Cook retired, but unfortunately was only able to live there a short time because of health problems that his wife had, and they had to move to a house on Augusta Avenue that we'll see on the walking tour Sunday. Williston Hall on the NIU campus bears Dr. Cook's middle name, which was also his mother's maiden name. The classical revival style of the house is quite striking, especially because of that 2-story white column portico facing the street. It was designed by Charles E. Brush of Carbondale, who also was the designer of Altgeld Hall at NIU.
And here's a picture of Dr. Cook himself. And then an older picture of, as you can see, when it was the normal school and the president's house. And you should see
That beautiful Greek revival railing that Dr. Cook is leaning against in the picture of him was removed by a previous owner. I thought to be restored, but it was never put back in place. It makes the front of the house look a little different than it should. It really added a touch of elegance to that porch.
And as you see, also the sidewalks have changed a bit since as you go by it today, that one sidewalk doesn't come straight out anymore, just the sidewalk.
And on our walking tour Sunday, I will point out the fact when we pass the house that there has never been a stairway from the yard up onto that elegant column porch. The only entrance into the house is from the portico on the east side off the big side yard. And the house, as big a lot as it had to be sited on, was sited at the extreme west end of the property. Cook is said to have selected that site because of the fact that he thought it was the most beautiful piece of property anywhere in the Elwood Horseshoe Addition, the new subdivision.
Now, Rob in the Joiner Room pointed out to us that though Cook came to us, he's reading the Bloomington paper in this shot. So, funny
And
enough.
he's buried in Bloomington.
Yep, he didn't ever change his allegiance that much, I guess. Anyway, quite a gentleman, though. All right, and we're moving to, oh, this is just such a lovely house on 205 Augusta.
Built in 1901 for Henry Morrell, who was known as a master carpenter and contractor, and is very strongly believed that he designed and built the house for his own family's use. Before moving to Augusta from the Huntley Park neighborhood on the south side of town, Morrell served as alderman of the South Side First Ward. The home on Augusta was very lovely, has a very lovely front corner porch supported by sets of columns grouped in threes. The original two-story barn behind the home at the end of the driveway onto the property was originally a horse barn, sensitively converted for use as a garage.
This is what the house looked like, and you can see that barn is there in the back, and you can clearly see the sets of columns in the front here that are still there, and the lattice work for plants to grow
And
there.
the yellow and white color scheme is so typical of colonial revival architecture, which this house is a good example of.
So again, it's such a big house. I don't know if I'd want to clean it, but it's beautiful. It just it's arresting when you drive down the street. And here's a prairie style, so a little different era, a little different style here. And this is 308 Augusta Avenue.
And Augusta is very well known for its ensemble of prairie style houses, not all built by the same architect. 308 Augusta was built in 1904 by Etna J. Wiswall, who at one time was a high school principal, later went into the furniture business in downtown DeKalb, also dealt in undertaking, and at one time he had businesses not only in DeKalb, but also in downtown Malta. Both of his daughters, Vera and Hazel, attended and worked at NIU and lived in the house until their respective deaths in the late 1960s. Both were active members of the local Daughters of the American Revolution chapter. And after the death of the last Wiswall daughter, the new owners found stored away up in the attic of the house boxes and boxes of letters that the daughters had written to their mother or that their mother had written to them over the years. They are now in the Joiner History Room here at DeKalb County History Center and have been for over 20 years. The house is strongly believed to have been designed by Eben Ezra Roberts, a prominent prairie style architect from Oak Park, who lived only a couple of blocks from Frank Lloyd Wright, but had his own idea about what prairie style houses should look like and never had any business dealings with Wright.
Okay, and then this is, it doesn't quite
Awesome
look like,
photo.
doesn't quite look like the same house. It's an older picture, different color scheme, but it is the same house. If you look, it's just from a different angle. So you'll see the porch on the,
More often than not, over the years, the trim around the windows and that has been a dark brown color, which
Yeah.
has been better to draw attention to
So-
it, as you see there.
this is what it looks like now. The other shot is from the other corner, so. So it looks a little different, but it's quite an imposing house. And again, very
Very
clearly,
beautiful interior as well. I've been in it a couple of times over the years.
and definitely the prairie style with the big porch and the windows placement and all that. So, all right, we're going to move out to the county. You know, other than Sycamore and DeKalb, there are some wonderful properties out around the county, and we've had a lot of fun picking these. And we went out as a group to photograph them. Thank you, Teresa, for the lovely shots of these places.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
glad we never got, no, cops didn't get called on us.
Yeah, we were standing on people's lawns taking pictures, but it's middle of the day, nobody's home, so it was okay. Actually, several of the owners did come out and meet with us and show us their home, so we got some great pictures. But these are just 5 among many out in the county. There are many, many homes out in the county that are really worth. We driving through Hinckley, we said we could certainly do a walking tour in Hinckley alone. But you could probably say that of Genoa and Malta. They're wonderful homes in many of the small towns around the area. So we really, really wanted to showcase some of those as well. Also, as Michelle can tell you, we have a lot of close ties with the museums in the other small towns, definitely Hinckley and Genoa. And we really do want to give a nod to them for their research and the jobs that they are doing out there in the county. So there's a lot of great little museums around this county that are doing a wonderful job of preserving our history, but also showcasing it so we can learn from it. We're going to start in Sandwich, and many of you, if you've been to the Sandwich Fair and driven into downtown Sandwich, you went past this house and probably stopped because it's a showstopper for sure.
But it wasn't always. When I first saw it in 1976, it was literally a wreck.
Yeah, we have
It needed so much work and loving care.
an older picture here that, it's not so pretty. It's pretty run down there.
That's the
but-
first time I've ever seen a picture of George von Kleinsmith too.
Yes, Teresa found that. So,
The house is situated on about a 1.5 acre site near downtown Sandwich. It was built in 1875, according to the date that's carved in the stonework over the front doors. George von Kleinsmith had come to the United States from Prussia and owned a very popular hardware store in Sandwich. Story is told that after several years in business with his partner all of a sudden left town with all their money,
hate when that
forcing von
happens.
Kleinsmith into the situation of having to rebuild not only his business, but the reputation of the business and of himself personally. But he did so, and in 1875 managed to build this great mansion. The home originally had 13 very small bedrooms. Each bedroom housed one of the 13 von Kleinsmith children. There were 6 boys and 7 girls in the family. It had previously been used as a 3-unit rooming house for many, many decades, which had become very run down and is now privately owned and has undergone recent restoration. Well, basically, the lower levels of the house represent Italian villa style architecture. The mansard roof on the top designates it as Second Empire style architecture. It's one of the rare good examples of Second Empire style architecture anywhere in the county, for that matter. And all the tall windows that look out on the verandas on the house are actually French doors that gave easy access out onto those verandas. And when I first saw the house in 1976, none of the verandas were remaining intact. And even the stairway up to the front doors was in a shambles, and it was so overgrown.
This has been a beautiful restoration. The people have really lovingly done
It's
this,
been
and
going on for about 40 years.
they've
Yeah.
lived there and enjoyed it. The bottom level is actually it's the basement, but it's built at sort of the garden level. If you ever had a garden level apartment or whatever, so it's like a bit below ground, but most of it so that you could get light. It was built that way so that there would be light and everything at the lowest floor, even in the basement. So nice construction, nice Nice style to this house.
Probably architect design, but we have no idea who actually was responsible for it.
And we have evidence now that the construction of it began in 1866, so it took him, 9 years to actually get the thing all built too. So it took a while.
That may have had something to do with Von Kleinsmith's partner skipping town with all
Well,
the money.
And not having money and having 13 kids to
Yeah.
support,
Kids, yep.
so a combination there of very interesting history here. You're going to get a lot of interesting stuff in the actual house walk if you join us for that, because there's a lot of interesting history with this guy and great pictures of his store in downtown Sandwich too, right on the corner there. You'll recognize it because the building is still there. So very interesting. And that is the house when it was a little in disrepair, and that's George Van Kleinschmidt. Actually went by just George Kleinschmidt
He dropped the
himself.
bond from his name somewhere along the line to anglicize his name.
But it's been picked back up by it may be subsequent generations or something. We got to do a little more research there, Teresa. Figure this all out. All right, we're going to move to Hinckley, and this is another one that if you drive past it, you're going to stop because it's just beautiful from the street. Talk about your curb appeal. This house definitely has it.
It's a fabulous two-story Italianate style house situated on a hilltop that historically was known in Hinckley as Oak Knoll. The house was built in 1878, and for many, many decades, it was the only house on Oak Knoll. So whether you came up one street or another onto Oak Knoll, both of them wound around to this house. Slater's previous home, which had stood on the west end of town off of View Street, west of Oak Knoll, is believed to have been torn down around 2001, although I have been told by a longtime resident of Hinckley that it wasn't actually torn down, but moved someplace else. But I've never been able to confirm that.
Always amazing to me how many of these homes get
And at
moved.
one time, the house served as the home of the Hinckley American Legion Post. After it became a private home again, it was painted in 2 shades of green. First floor was one shade of green, the second floor was another shade of green. That's how it looked when I first saw it in 1976. And when you came up the one street along the west side of the house, you saw a wooden placard on the side of the house that had the date circa 1856 on it, which didn't refer to this house, but to the original Slater home on South View Street. The house, according to family tradition, was always referred to as the house on the hill because of its dramatic Italianate appearance and striking curb appeal, as Jane indicated already. The interior boasts lovely French doors and beautiful hardwood floors, and surprisingly was able to be brought back from its days as the American Legion Post without a lot of changes being made.
That's kind of remarkable if you think about the number of people that had been in there and all the events that had been held in there. It would have been well worn, but they did a nice job of bringing it back. So you can see here some of the floors and again, the French doors there. And then, but the original pictures here are, it had a white painting scheme. So, a little green trim. So I think the current paint scheme is much prettier.
And I helped the longtime owners of the house who were responsible for its restoration and repainting choose that color scheme back in the early 1990s.
So it's really, there's a lot of house here too, a lot of rooms. It's just really beautiful. We're going to move to East Miller Avenue in Hinckley.
This is a house that predates the establishment of the town of Hinckley by 22 years. The house was built in 1850 as a farmhouse by Samuel Miller, who, according to some sources, was the second permanent white settler in the Hinckley area in the late 1840s, very early 1850s. Hinckley itself was formally established as a town in 1872 when the Chicago and Iowa Railroad came through from east to west. The Millers settled in DeKalb County on the recommendation of a friend of theirs, John Seabury, who was the first permanent non-native settler of DeKalb County. The Millers had 8 children. He had 2 wives. The first wife was Gelly Seabury, whose relationship to John Seabury is not completely well known. The house was constructed in 2 phases. The square front portion dates from 1850, 2 stories high, and the rear addition was added in 1870. And according to the man who owned the house about 40 years ago, when I first visited there and by coincidence got inside the house with him, the 1870 edition contained the very first indoor kitchen that the house ever had. The major decorative feature on the exterior of the house, meanwhile, is the rooftop cupola, which is square in shape, and I was in that cupola in the late 1970s, and even today, it gives quite a panoramic view of the area around where it stands.
Now, I'm going to show you the original picture, the picture today now too, with the trees are a bit grown up and the paint scheme today. Traditionally, this house was always painted white. I think I like the white. I'm not really always a white person, but I think it's really
One thing
striking.
about the front porch in the days when it was painted white, there were stairs going up onto the porch from the yard, which there are not anymore.
Right.
And
which
that's
is
a
weird.
nice picture then of Samuel Miller himself. You know, and if you look at these properties in Hinckley, you'll find that farming does pay. Both of these were well-established farmers, and that was their trade.
And Samuel Miller in 1837 is remembered for having a county tax bill of 62.5 cents for the year
Wow, I want that tax
for
bill.
his several hundred acres of land.
All right, we're gonna move on because we've got 2 more and they are really remarkable. Many of you have driven by this house many, many times. This is, it stands between Sycamore and Genoa on Route
Long
23.
painted blue with white trim.
And again, if you, there's a picture of the house today, but if you look at the other picture in the right corner there, that's a picture, I'm not sure how well you can see it, but this farm was named as Centennial Farm, which means 100 years of the same family on the same farm in 1936. So it's almost 200 years now that the same family, because it's still owned by the same family on the same farm.
Ephraim Hall settled on the farm in 1836, making it one of the earliest farm homes in DeKalb County. The current owners are the 7th generation of his family to live on the land and in the house.
8th if you count the kids.
Yep.
Timber from the farm is said to have been used to help rebuild Chicago after the October 1871 fire that destroyed so much of the downtown area of the city especially. It's remembered that the first 4th of July celebration held in DeKalb County took place on this farm in 1837. If I remember correctly, Levi Lee is said to have delivered an oration at that event, and Jess Kellogg of 230 South Main Street in Sycamore read the Declaration of Independence to those in attendance.
Wow.
The current house was built approximately 1870, replacing a large log cabin, said to have been the last log cabin standing in DeKalb County when it was torn down in the 1920s. The cupola now visible on top of the house is not the original, but was rebuilt by the present owners in keeping with historic photographs that they have of the house from years back.
We have some nice pictures of some of the things that the horse collars are actual horse collars that were used on the farm, and they found just out in the barn and decided to keep them. Original water pump that stands outside the back. This family has really respected the past in this house, which is really wonderful. They kept many of the objects and used them. Original lighting in the front foyer. These are great pictures. The top left that's a train going over the Kishwaukee River because there was a bridge, and this picture was taken from the back porch of this farm. Actually, you could see this bridge over the river then. It's not existent anymore, but the railroad tracks went through there, the back part of the
And also
property.
the old interurban line that ran from Sycamore up to Marengo, Illinois, called the Woodstock Sycamore, but it never reached Woodstock. Had a stop directly across from the park home or from the Hall farm on Route 23. Ephraim Hall was the original owner.
So, and the top right, oh, those are in the middle of Ephraim Hall. These are their farm bureau plaques from,
I believe the Ephraim Hall, I think there was another Ephraim
it
Hall.
was, yeah,
Yeah.
a couple generations
David
newer.
Hall was living in the house in the early 1990s when Phyllis Kelly, the first DeKalb County historian, visited the home and met him. I was in the house in the early 2000s with his sister Ruth Hall, who at that time was 94,
Wow.
had always lived in the house and expected to die in the house. Unfortunately, she fell and broke a hip and had to be moved to the county home where she passed away a few years later.
And the bottom right is the actual, is a drawing of the actual log cabin that was there before. And then the top right is a picture. You can see the house. The barn is still exactly like that. But
And
this-
it's the same silo, I believe. That was built in
silo barn, yes.
1911. Yeah.
And you can see, this is Route 20, this is the road in front of the house before it was Route 23
Right.
and before it was paved. I just kind of like that picture, so.
I like that picket fence that used to be in front of the
Yeah,
house.
it used to be a picket fence. Nice changes though. All right, last house here. We're gonna move through this here. Gottlieb Huber House is over on Malta Road. And what is known locally as Northwest Malta, I didn't know that was an area until we started doing this research, but it's out a ways from Malta, but it's still known in the area as Northwest
Just
Malta.
short distance north of Kishwaukee College on Malta Road. It was built in 1863 for Gottlieb Huber, his wife Elizabeth, and their 12 children. Gottlieb had come to America from Württemberg, Germany, with a longtime friend, one of the Wilrits, who still owned farmland near the Huber home. Originally, the family stayed on the farm through March of 1959, according to family descendants. And many of them are buried in Malta Cemetery on Route 38. It has been featured in at least 2 commercials, the last one having been done in 2012 by the Cargill Seed Company. Originally, there was an extensive wraparound porch from the entire south side of the house around to the east side of the house. It still retains a large portion of that south porch and a good section of the east porch. The original barn and outbuildings are very well preserved, and Jane fell in love with the barn
I know.
to such an extent that she's already talked with Rob Glover of the Glidden Homestead about including it on the annual DeKalb County Barn Tour.
It's a wish list. What can I say? I love farms. I grew up on a farm myself.
And I think the current owners would be most willing to
And
be
they are open to
on the
that.
barn tour. Yep.
There are a number of working cisterns on the property original to the house, including one that was used for piping rainwater directly to a special 3-water sink in the house.
They described this to us and then we saw the tanks in the basement. They have special, instead of rain spouts that go out away from the house, they have rain spouts that go into and under the house, collect all the rainwater in a big tank, and it settles out. And then they use that because it's soft water and not the hard water that you would get from the wells. So, and the sink, as you'll see in top right, it actually has a hot, a cold, and a center spigot, and the center spigot was directly to the rainwater collector.
Even the
That's in
bathrooms,
the-
though, in Elwood House here in DeKalb had that because of the lead line cistern tank in the attic of that mansion.
So you collect the good soft water and use that on your hair instead of the terrible well water they had. And I couldn't resist the picture of the barn. I really did fall in love with the barn.
We
What
were
can I
told the
say?
barn is
Beautiful.
3 stories.
It's quite beautiful. And they did, they said they had, their stalls for horses, cows, and sheep in the bottom level of the barn.
There's a separate chicken coop near the barn that had a capacity of 200 chickens once upon a time.
This is the original picture of the house with the wraparound porch and, Mr. Huber standing at the fence, and then a picture of Mr. Huber himself there. Quite a gentleman.
There's still a rail fence on the east side of the house along Walter Road, but the fence here between the driveway onto the property and the home no longer exists. It's just an open area between.
So as you see, there were lots of children among these people out in the county, but yeah, running those farms, you had to have a lot of kids. So this again was a farm operation. So we really wanted to stick to the roots of DeKalb County, which definitely are agriculture. And I think this whole tour does that in some real profound ways. So that is all the houses we have. And then I'm going to turn it over to Michelle here. Thank you for listening to us. We have lots more stories. This is only the tip of the iceberg.
Well, thank you both so much. I know we've got lots of just so much information here. So I'm just looking to see, we've got a couple comments here.
Keep it in our heads and not be able to share it with people.
I know. So one of the things that I always like to point out is that our mission here is to inspire curiosity in DeKalb County's history. So hopefully we have inspired some curiosity and you'll want to learn some more about all these different homes. And you can do that by purchasing a ticket to the house walk, and those will be available on October 30th. They're $20 a piece. Additional donations would certainly always be appreciated. You can also purchase them for other people, so you'll get the code. And so if you want to get a group that would normally get together for the house walk and share it together virtually, we had several people do that last year. The tour will be available through January 10th. Last year, we had a lot of people that ended up purchasing these as a Christmas present, and we extended the deadline. So if that's something that maybe people are interested, we also may consider doing that as well. So I am going to look at some of these chats here, or some comments in the chat room. Thank you all so much for the just the thank yous for the program. It says very interesting. When I get back to Illinois, I'll try and have a look at some of this. Went through west to east on a Greyhound bus in 2005. Wow.
Wow.
That's definitely one way to see the country. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate you all very much for joining us today. If you have any questions about the virtual tickets or purchasing them, please let us know. We'll be happy to help you. You can just give us a call at 815-895-5762, or just send an email to info@DeKalbCountyHistory.org, and we'll be happy to help you out. So once again, I'll just open this up. If anyone has any questions that they would like to just ask while we're finished with the formal presentation. Yes, so the question is, just to be clear, the $20 is for a virtual tour of these homes. We had, it was a flip book, what we used last year. So there it's broken down to information about the history of the home, as well as architectural information. There'll be some additional photos, and again, you'll do some more details than we could certainly cover with 15 homes in 1 hour. Any other questions?
Don't go knocking on the homeowner's door.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Well, we can do that, but
Right. So we hope to be able to certainly offer this in person next year, and maybe even do a hybrid. That was definitely one of the things that we always had a challenge with the previous house walk. Was we love to share some of these images in color, and that's just so cost prohibitive. So now we can have this beautiful piece that is in color and has lots of pictures with offering this online version. So I could see this being, we'll have, some houses open to the general public as well as some of the information available online. Any other questions, comments? All right. Well, thank you all so much. We really appreciate